Hey everyone, it's Angela Rocchio here, and with me, my co-host of the Adrenal Fatigue podcast, Danielle Aziz, and our very special guest. On today's episode, we have lifestyle and Pilates coach Vanessa Bartlett here to talk all about exercise. People come to us every day confused about what type of exercise is best for various stages of adrenal fatigue. Some are frustrated because they can't work out anymore like they used to. Many are crashing hard after workouts, wondering if they should stop working out at all or if they'll ever get back to normal exercise again. So what better person to have us here today to have this chat and unbox all of this than Vanessa Bartlett.
So Vanessa is a lifestyle coach, presenter, Pilates coach, writer, and mom of 2 boys. She has 20 years experience in the fitness industry and has appeared on The Morning Show, TVSN as a Pilates and fitness presenter, plus regularly writes for The Greatest, Great Health Guide, Body and Soul, Core Magazine, and Inside Fitness. As a young personal trainer running a successful Sydney-based business, Vanessa hit burnout and went through adrenal fatigue for nearly 2 years. This shifted Vanessa's passion into helping people find balance and vitality through exercising smarter, not harder. She has received an award for innovation in healthcare for her Pilates and well-being program with Sydney Area Health and coaches clients around the world through her lifestyle programs. So excited to have you here today, Vanessa.
Thank you so much, Danielle and Angela. It's an honor to be on your show today.
I think it's going to be a great episode. This is a question we get asked so much in our adrenal fatigue community on Facebook. So let's jump right in. We'd love to know what your personal experience with burnout and adrenal fatigue is like. Like, what got you into this line of work supporting people with burnout?
Sure. Well, I was a busy personal trainer in Sydney from a young age. I started at 18 and quickly was building classes at the gym and teaching big groups of people and personal training. And I kind of thought that that's what you just did in the fitness industry. You started early, you taught classes, you had a few personal training clients after the classes, and then you went back to reception, and then you did a night shift as well. So it's kind of like these long days I was kind of thrown into just because that was the industry norm. But I did love it. I did love being in the gym. I've loved health and fitness and movement from a young age. So I thought it was normal until it all kind of came crashing down. So I'd had a personal training business, was working at the gym, and all of a sudden I started to feel over quite a few months, just not myself, quite fatigued, quite run down, and started to get sick a lot as well. And I thought, okay, personal trainers are supposed to be fit and healthy. I'm in my, mid to late 20s at that point. This should be the peak of my fitness and peak of my health. I didn't have kids at that stage or anything like that, just a business, but doing these long hours and teaching a lot. So teaching up to 12 to 15 fitness classes in a week, which is a lot of hours to do that. And they were like boxing, spin, circuits, pretty intensive sessions to different degrees. And so over time, I just started to feel worse and worse every day. So to the point where I would teach a couple of classes, like a spin and a boxing class in the morning. And then in the daytime, I'd go home for a couple of hours and all I wanted to do was sleep, like go into a deep sleep. And I thought, okay, I've got to sleep more because at night I was having, the late finishes and early starts. But even if I did get 8 to 9 hours of sleep, which is generally healthy enough, I still felt so fatigued upon waking. And so all these little telltale signs started to pop up around that and getting sick. Thank goodness, as fate would have it, one of my clients said to me one day, I was in her health assessment doing her measurements, and I said, I'm just so tired. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not focused. And she's like, go see this doctor locally where we lived at the time. Thank goodness he was holistic in his approach. And he said, oh, your adrenals are burned out, Vanessa. Like you're doing too much. And I was thinking, what are the adrenals? What, huh? Like, I'm just doing what people do in the fitness industry. I'm just doing what personal trainers do. What could possibly be wrong? What does this all mean? So that was it. That was the long journey then back to recovery and me learning about adrenal fatigue, revamping my lifestyle in all areas, including food, stress levels, pulling back on those intensive classes. And that's where I learned a heck of a lot firsthand about exercise and its importance within the adrenal fatigue recovery process, and how you need to really modify and take care in this space if you do have fatigue. So that's kind of how I fell into it. And I thought, this is really missing, because a lot of clients I've had in recent years then often say to me, I'm not losing belly fat, for example, I'm doing XYZ fitness classes, I'm eating well, but the bottom line is they're quite burned out and they're a bit out of whack with their hormones and adrenals. And this all has an effect. So if you're then going to stress your body more with exercise, which exercise does do, then this is where this really important balance is so vital for people to help with adrenal fatigue, before adrenal fatigue, which is burnout, but then post adrenal fatigue as well, and maintaining it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that story. So you come to this, your personal experience, you definitely have, want to support people that have gone through something similar. And I love that. What it makes me think about is this idea that when your hormones, you can't have hormones be balanced if your life isn't balanced. And that kind of sounds like what it was for you. Like, you thought it was pretty normal. You're in your 20s, late 20s, and you're feeling like, I should be able to do this.
Yeah.
But
Totally.
turns out that maybe there wasn't enough balance in your life at the time. Would you say that?
Absolutely.
I mean, would you?
That's a really good point to sum it up, Angela. I think that being in the fitness industry as well, and look, everything has its place. Intensive exercise has its place. There is a certain culture in the fitness industry, which I was part of, going there day in and day out, where people push. And so there's not a lot of balance that I had learned in those, I suppose, 10 years from 18 to 28 with where I was at. And that's nothing, to do with a fault of theirs or the part of, the group I was part of it all. It's just kind of what people do. They push with exercise, they push with life. And as you girls would know, with helping your clients recover, it really is lifestyle and balance in all areas. And so, if you're tipping over the balance on all these different aspects, it does come together with pieces of the puzzle. So exercise and finding that balance, I believe, is such a big key. And that's why I'm so passionate about helping people exercise right for where they're at, and then building up safely and sustainably.
So important. And I love it so much. And I can't help but put a connection together with the three of us here, is that we all struggled with adrenal issues in our mid to late 20s. And even just this past month, I on some of the coaching calls that we do, I've spoken to a lot more younger clients. And so I'm just putting together, a lot of us maybe are just out of school. We've hit the ground running with our careers, and we're kind of creating this life where there is a lot of pushing, just like you said, Vanessa. Yeah. And we're learning at a pretty young age that that's not sustainable. Yeah. And I mean, for a lot of people, it's not always in their 20s. It could be 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, wherever your lifestyle takes you to the point where you burn out. But I just think it's interesting that when we think of younger bodies, I think we think of a lot of vitality and resilience. Yes. And it's interesting to burn out at such a young age, but it's definitely possible. And this conversation proves that. Yeah. Really, there's no limits with age.
Absolutely. And, and no one was kind of there to say to me at that time, except that holistic doctor, thank goodness, maybe you're doing too much exercise, which is not adding to this overall balance and this optimal health that you should be at the age of 28. So I kind of then figured out, I suppose, all right, if these sessions that I'm doing is causing a problem, although yes, I need to do health and fitness, how can I pull back a little bit from this to still be able to move and exercise without it then becoming a hindrance to my recovery? Because I just wanted to feel energized and like myself again, and not this heavy lethargic feeling carrying around after exercise, and get that buzz again that everyone else was getting from it.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk more about creating that balance, right? Because it's physical, but there's so much more here too at stake. And lifestyle is really looking at all the parts of ourselves and all the parts of our body, and how we're eating and how we're nourishing our bodies, mind and spirit. So yeah, I think we're going to be diving more into that here. I have a question. When someone
Sure.
feels burnt out but wants to continue moving in a healthy way, what is the first piece of advice that you would give them?
Yeah, so you want to keep moving and you're burned out. The first thing to do is look at the 4 principles of fitness. And this is a good way to think about it. There's the FIT principle, FITT, and that's frequency, intensity, type, and time of the exercise that you're doing. So if you start to pull back in all those areas, you can still do movement and exercise, but it's modified. So for example, frequency in that FITT principle, if you're doing 5 days a week, 1 hour gym class or 2 hour gym classes a week, sometimes people do doubles in the morning. That's what I used to teach, 9:30 a.m. and at 10:30 a.m., 5 days a week. That's a pretty stock standard routine for a lot of gym people. If the frequency there, that's 10 classes a week or 5 to 10, pull back and halve that if you're starting to feel burnout signs, if you're starting to feel like, my muscle recovery is not quite what it used to be, if you've got like sore muscles constantly and you're not quite getting over the workouts, that's a good sign that you might be in a bit of burnout. If you're starting to get sick a lot, as you know, that's a good sign that your immune system's compromised. These little things start to pop up, pull back in those modalities, the frequency, the intensity. So that would mean pulling back from, say, a HIIT class to perhaps a low impact circuit. Or if you're quite burned out, pull back from like a low impact one to restorative yoga or very light Pilates. So within the way I coach people, it's kind of like, well, where are you at? Are you an a fitness goer who's got quite a lot of experience in exercise, in which case pulling back on these would be very different to someone who has only maybe ever done like a walk around the block a couple of times a week. That person would also still need to pull back, but then probably add in a few little stretches and mobility just to actually help their energy. So it really depends. It's quite an independent case per person. But general advice would be start to modify, decrease the intensities of your sessions, the duration of your session, and the frequency, and just notice how you then feel after those sessions so that you're not, if it starts to be a thing where I went through of wanting to sleep for 3 hours after a 1 hour workout, that's a problem. You should be feeling pretty good after exercise. That's the general rule, and exercise is great for our fitness and health. So it's not feeling good for you after. That's a good sign that you need to start modifying and pulling back a little bit.
Yeah, fantastic. I think that is such great advice. And I think a good reminder for people that it doesn't need to be rigid. Because I think sometimes when we start out on these workout plans, and sometimes it could be with a trainer or these online programs, there's a plan laid out for you 5 days a week, 6 days a week. We want you to do this, this, and this. But it doesn't need to be set in stone if that's not feeling good for you. And I think we just need to remember that we can be flexible and honor ourselves.
Definitely. And I know you girls teach that as well. And that's a big lesson that I learned as well, is that fitness goals and sports specific goals have a time and a place in your life where you can work towards them. But in the case of burnout and adrenal fatigue, I honestly believe it's not the time to be pushing and doing things like, and this is the funny thing, it's quite an interesting dynamic, because in some people's cases, they go, okay, well, I now need to exercise to get healthier and fitter, even though I'm burned out. So then they do go and join these, structured programs, which are all well and good. However, in the case of burnout and fatigue, your hormones are already out, your immune system's probably depleted, you're probably tired and exhausted. And so you're shooting your body into the stress response, that fight or flight response in exercise when you're already burned out, your adrenals are already overloaded. And so this is where people need to kind of accept where they're at and pull back and go, all right, I'm going to start maybe just a little bit of movement safely for where I'm at. Perhaps, the 6 day a week rigid fitness plan, I can look at that in 3, 6, or 12 months when I am fully healed, when I feel that my energy and myself are back to my proper self, and I'm optimized again in my health, I'm not getting sick. So you can kind of, it's like I said to a couple of clients actually recently, last couple of weeks, let's focus on weight loss Third priority. So in our third month now, we're only looking at weight loss with a couple of particular ladies, because the first 2 months of me working with them was mobility, actually pulling back from too much exercise so that they could restore and go back into the relaxation response, be able to come back to homeostasis with their lifestyle, and again, not allow exercise to get in the way of all the progress with mindset and healing fatigue in other areas. So just learning to reprioritize your goals for now is also something that's key.
So true. Yeah. So I like to think of it sort of like, what movement can you add to your life to be able to nourish yourself up right now, right? And
Right,
adding
right,
movement and exercise that's actually going to nourish you rather than stress you out even more. So
exactly.
yeah, we often say like it's better to, it's actually not about what you do all the time, but how you're doing it, right? And your mindset, and just sort of like, are you, like Danielle said, are you pushing yourself? Are you pushing the limits? And so yeah, I just love that. And I love how you, those fit principles, I just want to go back to that. And I love how it applies to kind of all stages and all ages, because we have people in our
Definitely.
community all across the board, all throughout the spectrum of different stages of adrenal fatigue, and people from 20 to 67 years old. And that
Sure.
actually, those principles very easily apply and support everyone, I feel like. So thank you for that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's, it's funny because it's something I learned back in one of the first fitness courses like 20 years ago that I did. And just recently I thought this could really apply to helping people understand the fitness principles in adrenal fatigue recovery, and going, okay, well, it's not to say that, because there's two cases here. There's people who go through burnout and adrenal fatigue who are very much used to exercise like I was, used to 10 to 15 classes a week, and it is hard mentally to go from that to zero. It is really hard because it's been instilled in your life. It's part of you. I mean, this is my job. Like, this was my everything from quite a young age. Like, I had my neighbor build a step for me, a carpenter, when I was 8 years old, because just so I could do the aerobics on the TV 30 years ago. Like, that's how long I've been doing this, right? Instead of stepping up on the phone books at home. So they built me a set. Anyway, so long story short, for people like that, I understand and empathize with any of your community who've been there and have to go, what? I'm doing 5 weights 5 days a week. Now you tell me nothing, huh? That is a hard thing to process. So modifying and using the FIT principles is great, because you could go, all right, if I'm in stage 1 or 2 adrenal fatigue, I could still do something. So I'm just going to pull back a little, maybe decrease the amount of weight I'm doing. I was working with a gentleman recently on that. So I said to him, okay, your cap is like 10 kilos. I don't want you to do 20 for this particular exercise. You're only going to use 10 kilo weights. It may be feeling a little bit easy, but don't forget, in a couple of months we can push it, because right now you're in fatigue. Okay. So mentally he's used to doing this for 15 years at the gym, but pulling back there. And then the other side of that is people who've not exercised, like I said, and want to integrate a nice little bit of movement. Just add little pockets here and there of body weight exercise, learning to hold yourself on all fours, with Pilates and yoga, slow controlled movements, learning to work your core and really like push and pull your arms and legs with strength using your body. You will actually fire up your metabolism in a nice, nourishing way by doing that, rather than the high impact, high loaded stuff if you're fatigued.
It's awesome. Yeah, so helpful. And so I have a question to kind of take us to the next, I guess, next idea on this. And there's a lot of people out there who they still feel like they have the energy to do the workouts, but they might not really be recovering from them well, but they feel they rely on these exercises that they do more in high intense exercises because they feel like it gets the anxiety out. Like they feel that kind of that more like the mental effects of it, right? And
Definitely.
so do you think that it's possible to recover from burnout while still doing these higher intensity workouts?
I would say no, in a nutshell. Only because this is going from personal experience myself, and this is going from training a lot of clients and speaking to a lot of medical experts around this. in adrenal fatigue space. So it would slow your recovery. Now, let's say if we're talking about, if that question applied to, say, someone in just very early stages of burnout, you could probably still be okay with it if you modify a little bit, and as long as you're getting all your other lifestyle factors in check before this condition gets worse. If you're in a stage 2 or 3 where it's kind of affecting your life right now, but you do rely on it, and I know how that feels, you need it for the mental release as well, high intensity stuff. One big key is learning to channel that energy and expel that, I suppose, anxious energy, because I've had it as well. And high energy, often we have high energy from being like overachievers or, you know, wanting to achieve high goals, and that applies to fitness as well. So if you can kind of come to a place where you take your breath and you go, how can I channel this energy into exercise a little less intensive? So for me, it was switching from, yes, the boxing, the circuits, which were very fast, up, down, off the floor, high music, 30 seconds here, 10 seconds, change. Like, yeah, it was on the go. So going from that to stepping into my first Pilates class as a participant, or going up the back and like quite nervous and going, all right, this is so slow. Like I'm breathing out, I'm pulling my arms down and I'm pulling my stomach in, but then I'm exhaling and coming back. That's taken like 30 seconds for one tiny movement. In the circuit, I've just done like 5 exercises in 30 seconds, which is a very different mental release. However, if you can just be a little bit open to perhaps doing something a little slower, it will likely help you recover faster. So, you know, I don't want to quote that I know this 100%, but from my experience, I would say that it can still be a detriment. What you can also do if you still like the high bursts of exercise is just decrease the time. So if you're used to doing your 30-minute HIIT class, but you are like pretty fatigued but you need it, what could you do maybe 15 or 20 minutes? So let's go back to that fit principle and see how you can keep what you love in your schedule, but to a lesser degree, which will definitely help at the end of the day with total recovery. Because then it's about the hours per week. Like if you've done 1 hour intensive every day, it's a lot on your body. Remember that your body's already in the stress response if your adrenals are fatigued. Okay, so there does need to be a little bit of a shift in, I suppose, being okay with other modalities and finding ways to channel and breathe that anxious energy out through perhaps slower methods.
Yeah, I love that. I can really resonate with that one too. And part of the reason I wanted to ask you your thoughts on it is because when I was recovering, I was playing a lot of soccer. And soccer brought me so much joy, but I knew when I looked back, I hadn't been recovering from all my exercise well. So it's exactly what you said. It was really about like looking at the frequency. I was only playing 1 game a week, but I was training more often and doing like longer, more intense runs. So I just changed those completely. And I told myself I'm still going to play soccer, but I forced like to have a lot more subs and not play like the whole game or push myself like I may have in the past.
Example. Yeah.
But it's hard when you're competitive. Like it's a hard change to step into. But I think those tips are so, so important. And I'm so grateful that you could share them because I know a lot of people can relate to this out there listening. So I think it'll help a lot of people.
Look, you know, and I suppose it's down to the individual's goals at the time. Yeah. So if the fatigue isn't overriding your life and you're still pretty good and you love your exercise and you love the thing that you do, like I said, that bit of modification and like what you did, Danielle, keep it in your lifestyle, but to a lesser degree is certainly feasible and probably won't disrupt your health too much. But the second that you step over into that mark where it's like really taking your lifestyle away and you know that you're not functioning, that's where it becomes the hindrance. So if people just kind of like listen to their body at the time, you can certainly help recovery speed up, I believe, long term.
Yeah, I think so too.
I love that. I think it's really key to not always having high expectations, really taking it day by day, right? And asking your body every day, what does it need? What does it require today? Because every day is a little bit different. And if you really listen, then you might, avoid a crash if you just take a moment to listen. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I want to talk a little bit more about that with you, about working, you work with clients every day who you are trying to help them find that sweet spot, right? So
Yes.
can you tell us like a little bit how you do that, and like tips or to help a client find their sweet spot of with movement and exercise and according to like what's going on for them in their lives?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the first thing is to listen to your body and accept. So these two key pillars are vital. Like we were just talking about, really tuning in to how you feel after each session that you're doing. If it's positive, it's kind of like when you eat, right? You know that if you perhaps have eaten something that's going to make you feel sluggish, it's probably not a good choice. It's the same with exercise. Tune into how you're feeling after the sessions, within 3 hours after the sessions. And so then, yeah, pretty much, look, going day to day, which is what you said, I also help people recognize their recoveries. So if, like we were talking about before, muscle recovery is quite slow. So you do a weight session and you're still sore and it wasn't that intensive 3 days later, that's probably an indication that the style right now is not that great for where you're at. For whatever reason, your muscles are not recovering as well, or you're getting sick a lot, your immune system's compromised, all those things. So tuning into exactly where you're at within your lifestyle and your energy output is part of finding the sweet spot. The other thing is feeling like it's enough for you. And this is very different for every single one of us. What your idea of a session sweet spot or an exercise sweet spot is different to mine, is different to, you know, my client in Ireland, and based on her history and her health, etc., all of us. So it really is quite individual. But if you can find a place for yourself in exercise during fatigue where you feel good during it, you feel good after it, it's pretty easy. And then you're not getting sicker, it's not hindering your sleep, it's not causing you to be stressed, it's adding positivity to your body, mind, and life. That's your sweet spot, where it pretty much doesn't have any negative effect. So on the flip side, it's not healthy to have sore muscles for 4 days from doing 3 push-ups. That's an indication your body's out of whack. It's not good to sleep 3 hours after an exercise session because you've got adrenal fatigue. That's an indication you've pushed too much and your body's already so exhausted that you need more rest. So if you look at it on very simple terms, how do I feel during? Is it positive or negative? How do I feel after, within 3 hours after? And then the next day, that's your sweet spot. And the great thing about this whole thing is you can pick and choose different modalities and mix and match, which is kind of what I came to. So I did Pilates for ages and that was my thing. Then as I started to get better after a couple of years where I was fully recovered, I then started to go, right, I love Pilates, but I'm not just going to do this one thing my whole life. How can I bring back in some more intensive yoga? Maybe a little bit of resistance bands. I don't do weights. That's just my personal choice. How can I do resistance bands with Pilates and maybe a bit of cardio? Because I'm not going to go back to like full intensive 1 hour boxing because I know my limits now. So my limits, even though I'm fully recovered from adrenal fatigue, is that I will not do running because I've got pelvic floor issues from giving birth. I would not box. I do not do heavy weights. That's just my thing. I don't feel I need to. My body's where it's at. I'm at good body fat percentage. I'm healthy. I'm fit for where I need to be. That's my sweet spot. So the beauty about this is what I'm saying, all your clients and everyone out there, once you start healing, you can start pulling in a bit of weights or a bit of whatever you love, a HIIT class, maybe combine it with some yoga and Pilates and do 20-20. That's what I'm doing right now with a client. And she's found her sweet spot. She was doing like 2 hours intensive HIIT. And then she was like, oh, I can't just walk and do yoga. It's not enough. So I'm like, okay, each week, let's try 10 minutes here, 10 minutes of this, and 10 minutes Pilates. So now we've got her on a 1 hour plan of her perfect sweet spot for what she likes and what her body likes and what she can actually sustain long term without it setting her crashing and needing 2 hours nap.
Love it.
Oh, good.
Yeah, those are
That's
such
a lot
great
there.
tips.
I can keep going on and on, but it's just trial and error. And the great thing is you can start pulling in different things that you like within, again, let's go back to fit principles. Let's just pick 5 minutes of that intensive stuff. Let's see how you go with 5 minutes, and then the next week add it on. And so then I reckon within a few months of someone being like pretty much on the way out of fatigue or in a good place, you can find your sweet spot of exercise again where it's not a hindrance and it will assist your health long term.
Powerful. Thank you, Vanessa.
You're welcome.
So on the other end of that, so sometimes when people are A, really crashed out, or B, have done testing and they see that their cortisol is nearly flatlined, sometimes doctors will even say like, you shouldn't even exercise. Like I've heard that with some clients. And so I wanted to shine a light on the people who are really debilitated right now, nearly bedridden, feel like they're just so burnt out and having trouble getting going because they haven't done a lot of movement in a while. And when they do, they just feel really drained. Is there anything that you recommend in these scenarios when it comes to movement and movement in a healthy and supportive way?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So in that case, what you can do is start to use perhaps a chair or a couch or your bed as a support. So first I'll say it's not the time, absolutely not in this case, to start doing 5-week fitness plans and challenges and whatever else is on social media. Put that aside. What you should focus on at this point for some nourishing movement is, let's just say you're so fatigued, but you can sit up on your chair, right? So you move to the front of your chair where your core has to switch on, because when you lean back in your chair, you're quite slouched and so your muscles aren't working. The second that you can prop yourself up and sit straight, your core will activate. So you don't have to go and do 100 sit-ups for your core to work. Just sit up on your chair, draw your tummy in. And then perhaps from there, you could do some arm circles. So at this point, if someone is so exhausted, burnt out, and having to rest a lot, mobility and restorative movement would be your focus. And when I say mobility, again, it's like this. Sit on the chair and do a few arm stretches just like this, pulling your arm across in front of your body. That is a gentle dynamic shoulder stretch. It'll get your postural muscles awake. And then just sit here and press your arms up and down. You don't even need weights, or get like 2 little cans of food which weigh very, very little, and do 5 arm reaches above your head. Maybe that's enough for you, but it's a little bit of something that is giving your body mobility rather than completely doing nothing, which is not good for your muscles in any case. Another supportive thing, again, use the chair. Just get up and down off the chair and do 3 and down and up and down, 3 to 5 little slow squats sitting on a chair. Now that's quite different to saying to someone who's burned out, go and do 50 squats. That's a lot. That's ridiculous. It's not feasible. So why not use the chair and just go, I'm going to get up and down 5 times. Breathe as I do it. I've just woken my thighs and my glutes and my hips a little. I haven't shot them into overdrive because I'm already burned out. But yet you're giving your body a bit of gentle restorative, I'm awake type movement, which is what you do also need. If you're in a bed, you can lay down in your bed and simply raise your leg, right? So do like a slow leg kick up and down, breathing in, breathing out. You could do that laying in a bed, no problem. If you're dizzy, I used to get dizzy quite a lot. So laying in the bed, that's what I would do, literally a 5-minute walk. This is at my worst. Come home after 5 minutes, do a few of the stretches I showed you, and then do a little bit of Pilates legs in the bed or on the couch. Then I'd meditate after that. And so that's a very, very basic thing to go, all right, I'm not exercising because it's absolutely not appropriate at some stages of adrenal fatigue, but I can still move my arms in a circle, move my legs or stretch over to the side, or even sit in a restorative rest pose, yoga pose, where your knees are bent and your arms are forward and you just have your head down. That's a gentle stretch for your back, but also very restorative. So at that point, it's about restoration and a bit of gentle mobility stretching. That's it.
So good. I love how gentle those were. And I feel like most people would be able to accomplish that, or at least take some of that and use it, and it'd be very gentle. Great start. So I love it.
Yeah, great.
Um, so there's part of this though too, that there's like the mental piece, right? Of getting back into exercising. People don't have the motivation, right? Whether it's yeah, they just haven't been moving much lately. What do you do? What do you talk to your clients about when, you know, they're just, yeah, sort of unmotivated, uninspired, and having trouble getting started with movement and exercise and being consistent?
Yeah. So a couple of things. Mindset's a big one, isn't it? And I think as well, people think that they have to go out all crazy and gung ho to do fitness. And you don't. You could start with what I just showed you there with a 5-minute stretch. You know, and I suppose, firstly, though, getting your mindset to connect with how do I want to be in 5, 10, 20 years from now? Do I have kids or grandkids that I want to keep up with? So perhaps looking at, you know, you've had your journey, you've gone through this big journey, and having adrenal fatigue and reestablishing your life is a big personal growth journey with mindset, and not just the physicality of it, right? So learning to connect with your goals, I suppose, and seeing for what you want for yourself as a fit, functioning, vitality person. You know, if you want those things, if you want energy and health moving forward, you do have to do some movement, but connecting it into a goal and I suppose an idea that sits with you as a person is the most important. You know, I can't sit here, or no one can sit here and tell someone, yeah, you've got to exercise 20 minutes a day. Like, some people just don't have a motivation for that. Like, it's not inbuilt into everyone, and I respect that. So for people who are a bit demotivated, just think about for yourself, where do you want your lifestyle to be? Do you want to be mobile and agile when you're 40, 50, 60, 70? Because it does make a difference what you do now. Those little 5 up and down squats off the chair, if you do that just every day for the next 5 years, I guarantee your legs and your hips will be better in years to come, because you've moved that muscle. You know, it doesn't have to be squat jumps off a box to get, you know, fitness results. Sure, that's appropriate for some people, but not all. Yes, so sorry, I go off on a tangent again with that, but that's, you know, that's the first thing, looking at the goal, connecting to what you want for your lifestyle, and just slowly then introducing a little bit of what you like. You might find that, you know what, like, you don't love exercise. Like, I don't love running. I would never do running as a thing. It doesn't do anything for me. But I love stretching. So maybe you could do like stretching up and over. I could send you a 5-minute stretch routine, or, you know, just start experimenting with movement modalities that you like as a person. And then you could go, actually, I didn't mind that style of yoga I did for 10 minutes. Maybe I'm going to do that just a couple of days a week. And again, like you said at the start, Danielle, not having it rigid. So having flexibility in the methods that you do, not overdoing it and trying to do like hours of stuff which you just don't like. That's the key. Finding what you like, introducing it slowly, trial and error, and connecting to your goal for yourself long term of what you want for your body and your lifestyle.
Yeah,
I
that's
love
so
that.
good.
I just want to say the whole part about finding what you love is such a big part of it, right? Because that'll easily allow you to have a mindset of, like Danielle talked about, of playing soccer. Probably wasn't as much of a stress for her because she loved what she was doing, and it was
Right.
one of her passions. So like, what do people love to do, right? Is it? And there's so much available, right, on YouTube and Instagram, just social media. You know, it's like jump
Yeah.
roping, dance. There's so many things you can
Right.
do. And I
Yeah.
find that some people think it has to be this grand gesture. I was one of those
Yeah.
people who was like, and I then started observing other people around me as I got older, realizing, oh, I don't have to go to an hour and a half yoga class. Like,
Right.
that does not mean that I'm doing, like, that is not important to have that goal. It's important to like do things that bring me joy in the process. And it totally hit home too when you said that you don't run. I'm not a runner either. And I've never been a gym person. So I've always done exercise that I can do mostly outdoors, because I'm an outdoor enthusiast. So, you know,
Right.
surfing, you know, hiking, climbing, all of those things. I've always incorporated exercise into something that I've loved to do. And it's made it a lot easier and more feasible for me as a
Yes.
being. So I just, I love that you brought those points up. So thank you.
Oh,
That's
fantastic.
super great.
Yeah. Good to all of us, I think, at some point. And I think having an adrenal fatigue recovery journey actually forces you to go, what did I used to love as a child? Like if you love dancing and you have not danced in 25 years, go put on a video on Instagram and follow along with a 10-minute dance routine and just have fun.
Shake
Just
your
be
booty.
lighthearted about it. Because I think, people have these ideas, and many of my clients think, oh, I've got to do these set fitness programs because there's a million things on social media nowadays to choose from. It doesn't have to be a hardcore 8-week boxing boot camp challenge where you lose 20 kilos and you jump up and down off boxes all day. And this, it's more than that. It's what you love as a person. So connect to that.
Thank you.
I love it. I do just want to add on, because I do think, and I'm just thinking of like my own experience, it's great to not be rigid. And for me, as a creature of routine, I really liked having like a plan. But for some of us, I think it's important to connect with that goal, but then also consider the plan that you want to implement, just to make sure if you do have this goal,
Yeah.
that just because you're feeling particularly tired one day, that you're going to skip it if skipping it's not going to serve you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think there's the two sides to that as well. Having a bit of a guide is a good thing and a bit of an outline and plan. But yeah, like let's say if you did have, I'm working with a lot of different people right now. One lady in particular, I say to her, right, your 2 days, you need to have the 2 days off, because she was doing 7 days before, which is too much. So, but then she messaged me the other day and she's like, actually, I had 3 days off this week. You'll be pleased because I listened to my body. So I was like, yes, that is excellent, because that is the priority right now, because you're still coming out of burnout. If you did 3 or 4 days that week and you appreciated where you were at that fourth day and you didn't push ahead with the routine I had set, that's a good thing. So the guide is there, but she's not losing sleep over it anymore, because she's let go of the rigidity, which is what pushed her into burnout with everything anyways at the start. So it's a nice balance of both, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's just kind of having awareness sometimes too with you and your tendencies, because I think it could be easy some days to be like, oh, well, my body just wants to like eat a pizza and,
right.
not do my stretches.
Are you listening to your body?
But it's being honest with yourself too.
Right.
And I just wanted to add as an extra little piece of motivation, because this is a symptom that goes along with adrenal fatigue really commonly, and that's muscle wasting. And so I think we can get into a bit of a double-edged sword situation when we have that going on naturally, just because where we're at hormonally. And I mean, if our diet's not on point in this type of scenario, that could actually make it worse too. But then also not doing any sort of movement, this is actually causing more detriment to the body than anything. So it's just an extra little kick in the pants if anybody needs one, to just get moving in some shape or form, even if it's the simple mobility exercises that you were showing us, Vanessa. I think that is a huge start.
Yeah, you're exactly right too, Danielle. That is a double-edged sword. And this is the whole thing of going, well, we need exercise to stay strong and keep the muscles actually active and not have muscle wastage. So of course, as you would teach, having a bit more high quality proteins as well helps. But in relation to exercise, this is why I fell in love with resistance bands, actually, because resistance bands, I feel, and I've had a lot of feedback from people around the world going, oh, you know what, like I was doing weights, but I just gave resistance bands a go for a while, because you can still get a good muscular contraction where you can actually build a bit of mass and strength. And it's a resistance, so it's more load than just your body, but it's not such a taxing load like a kettlebell or a weight, for example. So bands are brilliant for people with adrenal fatigue. You could get a really super light one because you are fatigued, and then again, sit on the chair and do like some arm openings with a very light resistance band. Anyone could do that, even for 5 repetitions, which, like you said, will help prevent that muscle wastage and keep the muscles awake. So that's a really nice substitute there.
Huge. Yeah, I think that's great tips. And I love the bands. And they're so accessible too. It means like you don't have to go anywhere. You just have them at home, and they're not too expensive either.
Right.
That's great advice.
Good.
And I think to wrap up, and Angela, you can stop me if there's anything you want to add, but it's just really coming back to this whole idea that when we're burnt out, when we're struggling with adrenal issues, like we're really depleted. And we've likely been pushing for a long time. There's usually a lot of pushing, like we were chatting about, that kind of gets us to this state. So really just embracing this as an opportunity to find movement that is nourishing, right? And finding things in our lifestyle, whether it's the mindset work that Angela teaches, whether it's food, just nourishing yourself up so full-heartedly in all of these areas, with your sleep as well. I don't want to leave that one out. Even with supplements, they have their place as well.
Yeah.
But just really embracing this as a time to stop pushing, flow more, and just nourish lots.
I agree. And then a great way to do that is, again, pulling back where needed. Go back to your FIT principles and modify exercise so that it complements the work that you're doing with you girls, with the food, with mindset, with other stress factors in your lifestyle. And so then all these nice pieces of the puzzle in synchronicity. And so, and I will mention as well, interestingly, when I was studying Pilates, in one of the original books, Joseph Pilates, he wrote this back in like 1900. This is before adrenal fatigue was a thing, I would imagine. He wrote in his book, if you have struggles where you wake up at night at like weird hours, get up and do a 10-minute low impact Pilates session to get back to sleep. So, and I thought, gosh, this is interesting, because at 2 a.m. and 3 a.m., which we've all had with adrenal fatigue, you're waking up and you're firing. Use perhaps a little bit of movement to burn off that energy and go back to sleep. That's just a little extra tip I thought of. But it's interesting that it was mentioned by this Joseph Pilates gentleman as a way of healing anxieties, he referred to it as. So there you go.
Little trial and error, maybe a little challenge, maybe a little
We're
project.
having 2 a.m. workout sessions happening soon. No, anyway, just as a extra little thing. He's like, burn off the energy rather than just stay in bed thinking about stuff. So
I think there's a time and place for that. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Vanessa, thank you so much. This has been so wonderful. Can you tell the listeners about where we can find you? And
Sure. Yeah, sure. So you can visit vanessabhealth.com, and on there I have a free mindset and holistic exercise 7-day kickstart plan you can easily download, and you'll get sent that to your inbox. And then connect with me on social medias, Vanessa B Health on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook page. Or shoot me an email anytime if you need advice on any of this, info@vanessabhealth.com.
wonderful.
Amazing. Thank you, Vanessa. I think this has been a great conversation. I know that it's going to serve a lot of you out there who have been struggling with burnout and wondering how the exercise piece can fit in and serve you better. So I hope this has been helpful for everyone listening.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, girls. And I wish all your listeners all the best as well.